Mrs. Carter was selfless, caring, and kind. She was down to earth, genuinely interested in others, and tirelessly working to improve lives around the world. She and President Carter spent a work week at the center once a month. Days were packed from early morning to late at night, and while each had their own schedule, they worked in partnership, aware of what the other was doing through conversations, emails that they shared, and briefing papers. They stayed in an apartment here at the center, sleeping in the study on a Murphy bed. A family dinner was scheduled each month. She considered the Carter Center staff like extended family, serving as a mentor, a colleague, and a strategist. Mrs. Carter took time to thank volunteers, to meet with interns, wanting to know details about all of their projects, their challenges, their successes, and invited every class of interns to Plains. She was inclusive and persuasive in pulling people together to work on issues. Her annual mental health symposiums resulted in groups of psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and others collaborating to make progress on stigma and mental health issues. She was health conscious. While at the Carter Center and on trips abroad, Mrs. Carter made sure she watched what she ate, and particularly what President Carter ate when she could. She arranged Tai Chi lessons for improving their balance. When President Carter lasted only a few sessions, feeling it was much too slow for him, she invited staff to join for the lessons. When realizing on a trip from Beijing to Hainan that 2 Chinese women in the group did not know Tai Chi, she stood in the aisle of the private plane and instructed them in what she practiced every day. She was detail-oriented and prepared. She described herself as a night person, unlike President Carter. She stayed up late before trips, sewing buttons on his shirts and getting everything packed in a small suitcase. Before scheduled presentations, however, whether for a small group or a full auditorium, she would rise early, often before 6, to review her remarks and make necessary and particularly made calls to check that all of her facts were correct. She was constantly learning about the countries and cultures of places she visited, seeking ways to ensure health and peace programs were making a difference. She related to villagers in Nepal or Mali as easily and warmly as her neighbors in Plains. Mrs. Carter was an advocate for women's rights and was well aware of the burdens of women. She was thrilled when the Farmer of the Year in Ethiopia was a mother and her daughter. She would pick up babies and small children as if they were her own. If she observed a problem, such as a cleft palate or a clubbed foot, she wanted to know what treatment was available. She beamed when she heard mothers say their baby was named Jimmy. I always felt that many should have been named for her. She was one of the best election monitors because she recorded every detail. She talked to polling officials and diligently completed each form. She sometimes led election monitoring efforts without President Carter. She was a keen observer of people and situations. Her detailed notes in meetings included comments on body language, the setting, and those in attendance to add to President Carter's summary. She was just as cost-conscious as President Carter. And in budget meetings at the center, she asked questions to ensure program funds were being used wisely. While frugal and pragmatic, she was always stylish. During the Nobel Peace Prize events, she was elegantly dressed when standing on the balcony of her hotel room overlooking a crowd of people holding candles in the street below. Because of the freezing weather, she grabbed a blanket inside the hotel and draped it over her shoulders. Later, reporters asked who designed her lovely shawl. She was tough and competitive. When participating in Outward Bound with Carter Center staff, she coached President Carter on a helpful body position to use when scaling a rock wall. She fearlessly walked across a narrow plank 20 feet in the air ahead of him. Mrs. Carter led by example. She rarely asked anyone to do something that she wouldn't do herself. She treated everyone with respect and dignity. She was unpretentious, never seeking recognition for herself. Rosalynn Carter will remain an inspiration for all of us.